light the room. Truth cuts through the noise and gloom. No cue cards, no rehearsed lines. Just honest talking, changing times. Movies, music, headlines too. Different angles, different views. Laugh out loud or disagree. Every voice gets room to breathe. No filters, no pretending. Every story has a different ending. Oh, hey, it's Mikey and the Mad Dog. Bringing conversation.
It's 4 o'clock in Los Angeles. It's 6 o'clock in Chicago, and it's 7 p.m. and live from Philadelphia. Hello, everybody. I'm Mad Dog Scipio. This is our Friday, Tuesday night to everybody else. But this is me and Mikey are on a bender this weekend. It's our Friday, by God. Welcome to Mikey and the Mad Dog, the recently newly branded What's the Buzz podcast. We are still What's the Buzz, but What's the Buzz presents Mikey and the Mad Dog. And he is indeed in the house, Mikey, the movie maker Messy. How are you, Mikey?
I'm doing very good, Angelo. I've had a nice day here in Jacksonville, Florida. We've got a very hot topic today, very interesting topic. I'm looking forward to talking about it with you.
Mike, I got to tell you something. We had an amazing response to our guest, Robin Strom, last night, the paranormal investigator. Apparently, Mikey, I didn't realize how many people across the country experience paranormal or otherworldly phenomenon. Most of them in their own home.
Right.
A few believe it or not, we actually had, and I'm going to try and get a hold of this guy to bring him on the show. We had a guy wrote an email to us last night after he saw the show, and he said, I'm going to tell you my story. And he sent an email this long about, what happened to him. And,
Sure.
in public, believe it or not, in public. And I said,
Wow.
I wrote back, I said, I would like to have you on. Let's just see if we can get this together. So I'm going to try he and I are going to try and connect and send some. We're connecting on the email. So,
Right.
but we're going to try and get him on the show. It's
Right.
a fascinating show. If we can get him on, I think we could do it. And Robin Strom was an amazing guest last night. She was really full of knowledge. I didn't realize, again, you take for granted, like what you see on television, these
Sure.
ghost shows, and you don't think much of it. But she really put things into perspective and kind of like layman's terms, which I really appreciated. So a lot of us can understand that. Tonight, a subject matter that's near and dear to you and I, the subject of pro wrestling. And but this is kind of pro wrestling with a different twist.
Yes.
Everybody knows that I no longer do wrestling podcasts per se. I leave that for Monty and the Pharaoh, my friend Mike Monty and Jimmy Pharaoh. I leave that for Nikita and Benny, and I leave that for Busted Open and Bully and Dave LaGreca. Great guys,
Right.
all of them. Everybody I mentioned, great people. They do amazing podcasts. That's not what we do here. If we're going to do a subject about wrestling, there's got to be some kind of subtext. Tonight, it's a good one. Is WWE and wrestling in general, and let's put this up here, is sports entertainment wrestling with a satanic agenda? And I will tell you, and I told you privately yesterday, Mikey, but I'm going to tell everybody how this show became a show.
Okay.
We were, you and I were talking off camera last night before the show went on the air. And I told you I belong to this Facebook group, and it's a wrestling, of course, a wrestling group. And somebody in the group said, has anyone else noticed how dark themed wrestling has gotten lately?
Right.
And I thought, myself, you know what? They're right. Yeah, that's kind of has taken kind of a sinister turn. I hate to use that word, but really, it's kind of taken like a really dark turn. Um, I don't know if it's tongue in cheek, Mikey. I don't know if it's inspired by the horror genre. I don't know if it is. I'm sure it's something you and I are going to discuss tonight. I don't know. You watch far more wrestling than I do. So let me just start off the show with you then. Why don't we just ask you this?
Sure.
When did you see a noticeable turn in darker characters?
Well, in this, there's so many phases of that answer, but I'd say in the recent years, a couple of groups come to mind. Bray Wyatt, when he was still with us, he was still alive about 10 years ago, had the Wyatt family. That kind of evolved into the Fiend character. I always saw his character as kind of a David Koresh character with a bit of the Waylon Mercy wrestler character that Dan Spivey used to do back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And he was a cult leader. I mean, he was a backwoods cult leader, was Bray Wyatt, the original incarnation. And then he did The Fiend, which was pretty much like a monster movie type of character, like a Rob Zombie character. And then the Judgment Day group, which unbelievably has been around since the pandemic in one form or another. That group started with Edge, back when he was in the WWE and his comeback, and they've had Rhea Ripley and they've had Finn Balor and Dominic come and go and Liv Morgan now. That group seems kind of like the what was that shop in the mall, Hot Topic, that teenagers
yeah,
used
yeah.
they're kind of the Hot Topic Satanists, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I gotta give credit where it's due. I watched a couple of podcasts today in preparation for our podcast, Angelo. So I do want to give a shout out if that's okay. It's something
Sure.
called Society Review has a podcast on their YouTube channel, Society Review, called The Biblical Lens. The Biblical Lens. And they actually did a 2-part topic on this. And I was really prepared to play devil's advocate, so to speak, tonight, Angelo, and argue with you on every single point. But those guys really examined these topics. And I'm becoming more of a thinker in your direction that there is a satanic agenda, or at least possibly is. Let's put it that way, because there's just too much stuff there for it to be pure coincidence. Something's going on, whether it's just exploitation of marketing or whatever, which that's quite possibly the answer too.
You know what? That is a great jumping off point. The whole marketing angle. Because who watches wrestling, Mikey?
Kids, families, kids. Yeah.
You influence the young, and as they grow, because they're young and impressionable, they remember this stuff.
Right.
They do, and I know, because when I'm 67, I still remember being indoctrinated into wrestling when I was 7. My first match at the Philadelphia Arena. Oh God God rest his soul. Killer Kowalski and Bruno Sammartino. That shows you how bad. Yeah. Kowalski. Yeah, he was a character. But the whole thing, the whole indoctrination process through marketing, through characters. Look, this guy, Danhausen, he's the biggest merch seller in the world of sports, all sports, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, you name it. Danhausen outsells everybody. And the kids love him, but what is he really? He puts curses on people. Mikey, he puts curses on people. I saw him today curse a head of lettuce. And
it's easy with a character like that to just chalk it up to that's a gimmick, that's a joke. He's like a vampire meets a witch. But there's some other stuff. There's some other symbolism, going back to Austin 3:16, which is a rip on a biblical verse, John 3:16, of course.
Yeah.
Some of the symbols, like for instance, a very popular female wrestler, Stephanie McCure, her gimmick, so to speak, at least she comes to the ring wearing kind of like goat horns, and
Yeah,
the
the
goat,
ram. She wears
the
the
ram.
ram's horns. Yeah, yeah.
So
I
some
saw that, and I didn't know what's her name again. Stephanie, what?
Stephanie McCure, Stephanie
Okay,
McCure. It's a Latina name. It's
okay.
she
Because
was
I
wearing that.
knew I saw her face and I saw actually saw her entrance, but I
Right.
never knew who she was because I don't really follow it. Like if
She
it's
was new.
there, I'll watch for a minute.
Yeah, she
Stephanie
got
McCur-
hot.
okay.
Like she got to NXT. She was put on the fast track to success in NXT with the championships in NXT, and then they brought her up to the main roster pretty quick because she's super over. She's very pretty, which always helps, and she can actually wrestle, which helps.
Yeah.
Uh, but her gimmick, it's like, is that supposed to be a Satan reference or what? I'm not sure.
Well,
She does have
yeah,
a men.
and that's a very good question because I am at a complete loss. Mike, I'll be very honest with you. I
Yeah,
haven't watched wrestling as a casual fan or even as a super fan in probably 4 years. Well, I mean,
right,
like a solid 4 years. Where the only matches I would watch, one match a year, I would watch WrestleMania, or I would say one show a year, not one match. One
right.
show a year, I would watch WrestleMania. This year is the first year that I did not watch WrestleMania because it was absolutely atrocious what they went through to put this show on.
Right.
When you have to AI the stadium to make it look like there's people there, because that's what they did, and you don't know that, but you know it now.
Hmm.
Because I got pictures of that stadium from somebody that was there, and
Right.
I will tell you that there were not 90,000 people in that stadium. There were
Yeah.
maybe they said about 45 to 50,000 people, but there were not anywhere near 90,000 people. That's just that's fantasy.
Well, I don't think they claimed that there was 90,000 on single night. I think they were saying that was the combined.
Of 2 nights, I would buy
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
would
think that's
buy
what they were
that.
saying.
When you consider that the WrestleMania in Philadelphia, which I think was the one. Now, correct me again, Mike, because I lose track here. I think that might have been number 40 or 41. What the one in Philly was 40. Was that 40?
I think so.
WrestleMania
Yeah.
40? Because if that was the one, then that may have been the last great WrestleMania that I saw. In Philadelphia, I think because they said there was a combined crowd for both days of like 180,000 people for 2 days. That's a good number of people.
Yeah, that
Because
was WrestleMania 40. The night 2 was Roman Reigns defeated
yeah,
Cody Rhodes
that's the
to
one.
retain
Yeah,
the title. Okay.
that's the one. That's the one. That one was probably the last decent wrestling show I ever saw. I
That
have
was
not been to it.
2024.
Yeah, yeah, a couple years back now.
Right.
So the the one that just passed was that number 41 then, right? So the
Well,
next
that had
one
to
would be
be
42.
well, no, because we've had 2 WrestleManias since, so 42 has already come and gone. The
Oh,
next one is
okay.
the next one is scheduled to be in Saudi Arabia,
Oh,
which
Jesus.
is another big thing because they announced that over a year in advance. So, if I could, I'd like to give the definition, according to my computer at least, of what Satanism is.
Yeah, go ahead.
Noun: 1, the worship of Satan. Bullet point: a materialistic system of belief based on personal freedom that has Satan as the central figure. And that definition kind of reinforces, Angelo, and our listeners, what I was seeing as a running theme with some of the evidence that I was researching today that would push one to believe that WWE and wrestling has a satanic agenda, which is the emphasis on the individual. And this is where, to me, the debate can come in. Well, what exactly is Satanism versus just having a huge ego and being a narcissist and loving oneself to the nth degree? And like rap music, for instance, rap music, a lot of it is just bragging. I've got the biggest Johnson in the room, or
Oh,
my
sure.
rhymes are tighter than yours, or I did this
Right.
to your mama, or my gang's gonna blow up your gang on the streets, homeboy, or whatever. But with
Oh, boy.
wrestling, it's the you can
That
see that
sounds funny coming out of your mouth, Mikey. Oh, boy.
my rap name, my rap alias, Angelo, is Too White. So
Yeah, right.
uh,
No shit, brother.
too white, right? Two white
Oh, damn.
MCs. But in any event, the egotism of wrestlers, for instance, Triple H coming out to the ring 20 years ago in Chicago to wrestle John Cena and coming out like Conan the Barbarian, you could
Yeah.
interpret that if you wanted to. That's around the time he was calling himself the King of Kings when he first started with that, one of his many nicknames.
Well, that's
But
another thing. We're going to. You're actually going to see something about that tonight.
sure,
The whole King of King things, again, a knock on Christ, on theology. I'm not,
right,
and believe me, guys, if you watch the show, you know I am not in any way, shape, or form a Bible beater, but I am a moral person.
sure,
And when I see kids being exposed to immorality, such as they see and I'm not going to single out WWE. I'm going to single out a lot of wrestling tonight. But you make a good point. Satanism is not the worship of the devil. Let's be real clear about that.
right,
Satanism is a lifestyle of pleasure and excess. Essentially, that's what it is.
right,
I believe it or not, and I'll tell you in full candor. I have a couple of friends that are Satanists. They are the nicest people you'll ever meet. I swear to you, they really are.
sure,
Um, they will not judge you. They will not critique you. Not like a Christian will. If you're not a Christian, you're going to go to hell. Blah 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 blah. My response is, I'll see you when we get there. Um,
right.
so let me ask you this then, because you're on kind of a roll over here, and I don't want to slow you down. I want you to continue. So where do we go from here then? Where do we pick up the mantle and like try to, I'm gonna say, rein this back in, but like get wrestling back on kind of like a fan friendly path rather than an agenda driven path, because it
Well,
clearly
yeah.
seems to me, and I think you've seen it for yourself today. There's clearly, it seems to be largely agenda driven. That's what I my gleaning from it is, yeah, they have a message to put out there, and that's what they're doing.
Well,
Why
if the
otherwise? You got an independent guy named Danhausen who
right,
doesn't need the money. He clearly does not need the money. He was a multimillionaire when they signed him. He's still a multimillionaire, but he's got an appeal, Mikey, to the kids. The kids fucking love this guy. They
right.
love him. And he's a guy, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know who Danhausen is, look him up. He puts curses on people with his fingers like this. You're cursed. That's how he wins his matches. You're cursed. Go ahead, Mikey. I'm off on a tangent here. I'll shut up.
Sure. Well, with the Danhausen thing, it's similar to how Mr. Sacco got over in 1999. You know, Mick
Oh,
Foley's sock. It's such a in a world of tough guys and bullies and everybody's beating each other up. When you
yeah.
throw in, I'm going to give Danhausen the benefit of the doubt and say he's 190 pounds and he's 5'8" or 5'9",
Yeah.
and he looks like a guy that's at your local open mic night. You know what I mean? He's a small little dude. But when he's able to put a curse on the big bad wrestlers and make them look like idiots, the kids get a big chuckle out of it because they feel like they're the empowered kid getting bullied at school who just put a curse on the bully in the schoolyard. So, but as far as some of this, as far as the thing I was saying before is how much of it is a satanic agenda? Do the fans, does Angelo and Mike or Mikey and the Mad Dog or our friend Leo or any of the fans, even as a giant collective, the only way to reach the WWE in particular is to not watch. I mean, that's what I discovered. And Mike, my phase of Mike, the angry wrestling fan, I discovered that the best revenge is to watch the WWE and every other company on your terms. Don't feel that you're indebted to watch. Don't feel that you're enslaved to watch. Don't feel like you owe it to the company to watch. When it's convenient to you, do other things. I saw the Odyssey movie. That's a tremendous movie. Go see that on a Monday night instead of watching Monday Night Raw. I mean, there's so many things you can do to entertain yourself. Listen to a fighter play basketball or Robin's book, Robin that we had on last night. You know, get her book. But my point is, the thing that kept going to me when I was looking at this evidence for the potential of a satanic agenda, especially with WWE, just the amount of ego that the wrestlers have, the Rhea Ripleys, the Charlotte Flairs, and how the commentators like Michael Cole, the chirping parrot that Michael Cole is, they'll always just tell you how great and great and great these people are. So in a sense, the wrestlers take the place of God, or they take the place of Jesus for the wrestling fan that may have an opening, and it's called false idol worship or idol worship.
Yep.
When you put these normal human beings, granted they're great performers, great athletes, and you put them on a pedestal, and some of the fans, Angelo, and there's been this wave of fans who are losing their minds and stalking the wrestlers and going to the wrestlers' homes, like Rhea Ripley experienced this. It's really pretty scary. And Sonya Deville, basically, her career got interrupted because a stalker went to her house. And the problem is, I'm not blaming the WWE or I'm not blaming the wrestlers, but when you keep telling people that these wrestlers are significant and they're holier than the average person, some fans are going to buy into it. They're going to buy into it really hardcore and lose their minds and put these people on a dangerous pedestal.
The very interesting word you used, enslaved. Don't feel enslaved. Here's the interesting thing about that word. Whether they know it or not, they are being enslaved very subliminally through merchandising, marketing, through what is said, through the commentary, through wrestler interviews. Let me just, I'm going to say this, and then we'll get into some of the more notable characters, because this is really a character-driven industry, and we all know that, you know, characters, they are money makers or they're shit stinkers. You know, they're either you got a character like The Rock or Stone Cold or John Cena. These guys can generate great revenue, and then you have characters that'll last for a cup of coffee and they're off to the indies. Professional wrestling, more broadly, has a long history of incorporating dark, horroristic, almost demonic, and occult-inspired gimmicks for its entertainers. Entertainers in quotes. These themes are often influenced by horror films, heavy metal music, folklore, mythology, shock value, and in some cases, satanic and or devil worship. Okay. Comma. They also create compelling villains for dramatic storyline effect. Okay. And you're a movie maker, so you know you have to build to a crescendo. Your characters get you there. Your storyline is driven by those characters. And what you leave the audience with is either going to go, or go, okay, I'll just go see another movie. You know?
Right.
So Although many of these gimmicks include imagery associated with occultism or paganism, voodoo, or Christianity depictions of evil, such are inverted crosses, pentagrams, rituals of supernatural symbolism, yada, yada. They are generally presented as, and here's the part that I love that quote, they are generally presented as, and I quote, scripted entertainment rather than literal Satanism, unquote. I get what they're saying. Okay, I'm gonna put that away now. I get what they're saying. And they mention characters like The Undertaker in the Ministry of Darkness, Kane, Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, Wyatt's family, Finn Balor, the Demon, Papa Shango, Kevin Sullivan, you know, the Dark Prince, they called him. All, you know, other, here you go, Aleister Black or Malachi Black, depending on what organization he's with.
Right.
You know, you have to remember something. Okay, all of these people, they come and go. They change their names. You say, oh, well, that guy used to be Papa Shango. Went through 5 characters, and we all loved him.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Godfather, Papa Shango.
Kama,
Oh God,
Kama Mustafa,
yeah, Kama, yeah, exactly. Kama,
the
remember
Good
that one?
Father. I do. The Good Father.
Yeah. Then you had the
You meant-
acolytes and that sort of stuff.
Right.
It's kind of like a you know, a handful of people that they name. Okay, so now let's talk about what's really going on.
All right.
What's really going on is very cryptic, very slow, slow and methodical. I'm going to say that. I believe it's a slow, methodical move to get the audience to follow where you're going. And where are they going? They're going down a very, very dark road. If you follow wrestling like you do and like I used to, you can almost telegraph what's coming up for them next. It would not surprise me. It would not surprise me one bit, and we're going to see some video tonight. Wouldn't surprise me one bit to find an entire pay-per-view, or what they call premium live event, PLEs now. You got to remember, folks, I'm old. Pay-per-views was my day. Premium live events now that are completely dark inspired. It wouldn't surprise me a bit, especially with a company like TKO Endeavor, which has zero interest in morality. Their interest is simple: make money and make a lot of it. And it doesn't matter how you do it or who you do it with, just make some money. You know, WWE, Mikey, at this point in the game is an afterthought. It's an afterthought. What's really important is that somebody at the top of either or both of these companies has a very deep-rooted agenda of indoctrinating the fan base to like what they tell them they're going to like. And that seems to be what's happening. We're going to tell you what you like. You're not going to tell us what you want.
Well, if I could once again play devil's advocate,
Sure.
how
Absolutely.
is that different than in 1992 when Hulk Hogan was thrown out of the Royal Rumble? They switched up the audio to make it sound like the people in New York were booing when in fact they were cheering. My point is just that at what point is it simple marketing? The WWE trying to push who they want you to cheer for down your throat. They try to push Roman Reigns down the fans' throats for 3 or 4 years as a babyface before they gave up and just let him be a heel.
Yeah.
How is that different than pushing a satanic agenda?
It's not. It's not at all. Because the key point is manipulation. If you
Right.
have to manipulate, here's the crux of this whole argument. And it's fairly simple, Mikey. It's really, really simple. There is absolutely Zero difference between Hulk Hogan being cheered, but the people at home hearing boos, and the satanic agenda we're talking about tonight. The fact that Vince McMahon tried to shove Roman down everybody's throat to the point where in Philadelphia he literally was booed out of the building. He had to leave the Wells Fargo Center. He had to leave the Wells Fargo Center because they literally booed him out of the building.
Right.
Okay? Like literally booed him out of the building. Because the people did not want that character at that time shoved down their throats. But now the people don't have a choice. The people, the fan base, the loyal fan base, which is essentially only the ICW, the IWC, the Internet Wrestling Community.
Right.
The Internet Wrestling Community runs pro wrestling. They are this much of the audience, okay? But they got a guy at the helm named Paul Levesque who books for moments, okay? Moments
Right.
and pops. You can't book a wrestling match or a wrestling event that way and expect the people to go with it. But somebody at TKO, and I think it's TKO that's really pushing this agenda, somebody at TKO is playing very, very slick marketing. They're doing it with symbolism. They're doing it with music. They're doing it with the theme of the premium live events, with the characters that they're hiring. Somebody there knows what they're doing. I got a really, really good idea who it is, because
Okay.
this person has been extraordinarily quiet lately. And when he's quiet, he's up to something. His name is Dwayne Johnson, The
Okay.
Rock. Okay.
All right.
You got to remember where his head is. He owes his career to the devil. Okay. He sold his soul to the devil, that guy. Okay. And I'm nobody will ever convince me he didn't. But here's
So
the
what do
thing.
you? Okay, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead, Mike.
When you say he sold his, I mean, I think of the song "The Devil Went Down to Georgia," or when you say he sold the soul to the devil, what do you mean literally? What do you think literally happened with Dwayne Johnson and the devil? What do you think?
I
Just explain.
think I'll tell you exactly what I think. And I think what happened was someone made him, and that, like the old lines from The Godfather, I believe someone literally made him an offer he couldn't refuse in
Okay.
exchange for money, influence. It's not even so much about power, because influencers today, they are the real power. Why, Mikey? Here's why. Because influencers are people like you and me that could relate to everybody.
Sure.
I will listen to somebody like Mikey Messier before I'll listen to a paid spokesperson for Jergens hand cream, okay? Because I know he's getting paid. But Mikey, he's my boy. Mikey
Right.
wouldn't lie to me, That's the mindset. And I think that Dwayne Johnson, and I don't say sold his soul to the devil, and I say that parenthetically, I think he sold out to the highest bidder in exchange for the influence and stroke that he has right now. I'm
Okay.
absolutely convinced of that. But again, when you're talking about wrestling and specifically the character-driven industry that it is, you have to mimic society in order to stay current. Well, look at society today. You see a lot more dark than you do good.
Right.
They're talking more about Satan and the Antichrist these days than they are ever about God or Jesus. or Allah or Buddha, or anybody that's good and decent. The
So do you?
problem is that you have, again, Mikey, you have this small group of people called the internet wrestling community that influence this group. They influence everybody because this device that we have, this computer thing that we have, they could hit a button, man, and 1 million people have all that same information. One button, boom, send, and then everybody's got it. And then send, and everybody. You got, let's say you have 1,000 people all hitting that button, and 1 million people each are getting it. Well, there you, hello. There's your audience.
Well, is it? I guess my question arising is I think you're kind of making two overlapping points. One is about the internet wrestling community having a lot of stroke with the promotion, and it kind of feeds in itself. And I get that. I'm not going to argue with that. The point about The Rock or Dwayne Johnson, what do you think that he personally is a Satanist or has a satanic agenda, or he's been taken under the wing of some bad people, or what do you think's going on with?
I believe in my heart of hearts, and no one will ever convince me otherwise. I believe that he struck a deal with Oprah Winfrey, who is an evil to the core woman. I don't like her. I don't trust anything she says or does. She has an agenda. Her agenda is power at any cost. And The Rock has aligned himself with her. I think The Rock is easily influenced by the celebrity factor. He's still a mark. He said it himself. He says he's still a mark.
Right.
Well, a mark for what, Dwayne? What are you a mark for? The business? Are you a mark for the business that made you famous? Or are you a mark for the person that made you wealthy? That's my point.
Yeah, I think Dwayne, I've never met him. I've been in close proximity with him, but I've never shook his hand or talked to him. I think from what
Here you go, Mikey. Listen to this. Here you go. Here you go. Al Ruffian. It's leading the letters off the cliff, right? Here's another one. I bet he sold his butthole for fame. Well, we already know that Kevin Hart did. He took $50 million to de-virgin his a-hole. That's factual. That's factual.
That's a Kevin Hart story?
Yeah. Kevin Hart told the story. Oprah is the vessel for some ancient evil. No shit, brother. Ruffian's on it. But this is what we're talking about. There is a level of, in other words, Mikey, what concerns me about this industry that I loved so much and would have given my left nut for is that it has taken a very, very twisted turn downward. It's not the wrestling that even you, and you're considerably younger than I am, but it's even not the industry that you and I watched or reported on or talked about with the, God rest his soul, the late Jeff the Ref. If Jeff, God rest his soul, if Jeff saw what was going on today, he'd be beside himself. He would absolutely be beside himself.
I will give you some fuel to your fire if you're ready. There's a wrestler that you.
I'm gasoline, baby. Go ahead.
There's a wrestler that you mentioned in the satanic gimmick wrestlers, Malachi Black. He's also gone by Aleister Black.
Aleister Black,
He's bounced back and forth between the WWE and the AEW. I think right now he's not with either company. And he has a clothing line by the wrestler. And it's good for him for starting a business outside of wrestling to have a different income than just wrestling. You know, smart move on his part. But his company is called Black Mass, BLXCK BlackMass, and apparently Black Mass is his T-shirt and clothing company, and it's got a very thinly veiled satanic element to their designs. There's a lot of goat heads. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of very dark imagery with I shall be cleansed through flames. I shall be delivered through fire is one of the slogans on one of the shirts.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the website right now. There's a lion or a tiger head with a sword through it. All type, a guy in a cloak on a throne. All types of stuff like that. Apparently, Alistair or Malachi based his clothing company on a different clothing company that was even more outwardly satanic in nature. And a lot of the WWE wrestlers, including Malachi, until he smartened up and made his own competitor company, but a lot of the wrestlers, Rhea Ripley is a notable one, they were wearing the clothing of this company. Seth Rollins was named in this.
Sure.
And the assertion is that by wearing this clothing, they're basically coming out of the closet, so to speak, and saying, yes, we believe in, we wear the clothing of a company that is satanic in nature, or at least uses that as marketing. And their defense, if they had a defense with some of the wrestlers, is, hey, we just like the shirt. It's just a cool shirt. You know what I mean? So the defense is,
yeah, it's easy. It's easy to invoke that narrative, and I get that. Look, you have to have a scapegoat. You got to have something that a bullet point. You got to have a talking point. Oh well, this is not how I am. It's not what I believe. This is just my persona. Okay,
just rock and roll, or it's just the gimmick, brother.
Rock and roll, right? And I said last night that all of this comes from the top. There was one person that laid the foundation for this. One Mr. Vincent Kennedy McMahon, who is a devout Satanist. And he has said it. He's on record as having said it. You can't make this shit up. I always tell people, I say it every week, Mikey. I say it every single week. The truth is always, always stranger than fiction. I promise you. And what we're looking at here is Vince McMahon standing in front of the WWE logo, which is the inverted Oracle of Moloch, complete with the anarchy symbol in the middle of it. Those of you listening on radio, that's what we're looking at right now. Those of you watching on Tubi TV and Roku, Amazon Prime, of all our streaming services, YouTube TV, you're seeing the same thing we are. I'm not making a word of this up, folks. So that's what we're talking about, Mikey. Now I want to show you. I showed you and the viewers last night a small piece of video, and I promised that tonight I would show the entire thing. I think what we should do is just let this roll. Those of you listening on radio, we're going to roll a clip here. The contents of it are various wrestlers in satanic garb and satanic themed matches, occult themed matches, and or gimmick wear, or what they call their gimmick. You're going to see that now, and we will do this. I'll play it through, and then Mikey and I will discuss this. I'll let Mikey lead this off when we finish this. So, Mikey, when this video is over, it's your show, kid. So let's go. Here we go.
Okay, we're back. We just watched a video that was very informative, illustrative. I would say 30 or 40 wrestlers at least were referenced in the visuals. You had anything from the Acolytes, which was the tag team of Justin Bradshaw Layfield and Farouk Ron Simmons together with their symbolisms on their chests. You had things like MJF, Maxwell J. Friedman, and the AEW recently winning a championship and sitting on a throne. Quite a bit of references to Triple H or John Paul Levesque. His WrestleMania entrances for the last 15 or 20 years have all been very ego-driven, I would say. And yeah, it's interesting stuff, Angelo. I mean, here's once again to give the company the benefit of the doubt, to give all wrestling companies, but I guess especially WWE, just to give them the benefit of the doubt for a moment. They provide so much hours of television. Not all of it is good hours of television, but a lot of content. And when they're constantly trying to, it's like they're constantly throwing things against the wall, like different plates of spaghetti and then the meatballs and then they're throwing everything against the wall to see what sticks. Is it possible? Is it possible that, you know what I mean? Is it possible that a percentage of all the stuff they're grabbing, there's going to be good storylines, bad storylines, so-so storylines, and is some of it just based on the numbers? If they have 1,000 storylines a year, is it possible that 30 or 40 are going to be referenced as satanic in nature, just because they're grabbing so much stuff that there's bound to be a percentage that falls under the umbrella of what could be considered satanic by somebody?
That's a really good question. I have a partial answer for you. Because of, and I think a lot of this just goes back to, you know, using what's convenient and using what's available. There is very little creative input from any original source now. You have a room full of writers, you know, all sitting around wanting their idea to be heard. Well, Paul Levesque is, for all intents and purposes, like the final say, so they say. I don't believe he is. I believe TKO is the final say. I will tell you that were this a different day and time with creative ideas and Vince McMahon at the helm, much as he's responsible for a lot of this, he's also responsible for much more creative content than what we're, and I think what we're seeing now is characters of convenience. There's nothing original. They're taking old characters, old demonic characters, old occult characters, even Mikey, old movie characters, and recycling them. You saw when the Wyatt family was shown on here. You saw like 6 or 7 different like masks. Okay. All like beautiful, well manicured horror masks. Okay. And that's great for a horror movie. You know, and it'll scare the shit out of a kid if he comes up against it. But the thing about how much do you use in wrestling, how much do you want to influence your audience, which basically is between 13 and 25 years old. That's the crux of your audience. They are the most vulnerable, the younger.
Right.
Okay. So what are you really saying then? If you're pushing forward these dark occult or, you know, I don't even want to say, let's leave the word satanic out of it. Let's just use the word horror. Okay. We'll replace the word satanic with horror. Okay. If you're pushing all these horror characters, what does that say? Tells me that there's no originality left, that you continually recycle the same characters over and over. Like, am I making too much of this? Is it like Shakespeare, much ado about nothing?
Well, I would say that part of that answer is, and I've said for the last 5 or maybe 10 years even, the simplest wrestling, both AEW and WWE, take 5 mid-card wrestlers, give them a faction name, make one of them the leader, and put them all in black t-shirts and black pants, and you have yourself a new cult. You have yourself a new group, a faction. You know what I mean? And it's like the Karrion Kross, and they brought back Paul Ellering, for God's sakes, to manage a group like that. And my point is, I wonder how much of it is the lack of imagination, and this strikes close home to me because I did interview for the WWE creative writing team going on almost 20 years ago at this point. Right. And I still feel if they hired me, we wouldn't have all these problems, because I would have the pencil and I would be fixing the WWE and making it in my image of what it should be. I do feel that at times, for instance, back when Chris Benoit was alive, they actually did the same storyline with Chris Benoit in the same calendar year. Once with him as a babyface, and once it was actually with Kurt Angle. They did the same storyline with Kurt Angle twice. First, I think Chris Benoit, as a good guy, stole Angle's medals. And then about 3 or 4 months later, Steve Austin, as the bad guy, stole Kurt Angle's medals. And one storyline was on Raw and one was on SmackDown. And Angle went from being a babyface to a heel, but they basically repeated the same storyline almost note for note, which was the other wrestler steals his storylines. My point is, this is an excuse for the WWE that they just run out of material, and they recycle and they borrow and they steal. And right now, Angelo, horror movies, it's like punk rock. Like, the easiest thing for a teenage kid to do is to play in a punk rock band, because all you got to do is scream, and you have someone smashing the drums and someone playing the guitar.
You don't have to know music.
Right. But it's a thing where if you have the balls to go out and do it, punk rock is very accessible. And horror, you can make a halfway decent horror film on a very low budget. The movie that's out now, Obsession, is a $700,000 or very low budget movie that's making a ton of money. And basically, you have attractive girls or attractive women. You have some type of demon or some type of monster who goes out and kills the teenage kids, so the teenage kids have to figure it out and survive. That's the basic trope of a lot of horror films. Well, the WWE, they know that the younger they get you as a fan, the longer they keep you as an adult. And you and I are 2 examples of that. Yeah. So if they know that kids like horror, kids want the forbidden fruit. They want what they're not supposed to see. So they're not supposed to see horror. If the WWE can take a horror character like Danhausen or Rhea Ripley, who's like the badass punk rock chick who, they can make this palatable just enough so that their parents don't step in and intervene. And from what I've seen, Angelo, a lot of parents don't step in and intervene at all these days. They let the phone be the babysitter. Most parents are kind of tapped out.
Man, Mikey Messier, did he open up a can of whoop ass on the general public?
It's true, though. I mean,
it all comes. Brother, I'm going to put you over like $1 million right now. I'm going to put you over like the moon, because what it all comes down to is what Mikey just said. If there's no parental oversight here, and your kids are just watching what's on the tube, wrestling. We're talking about wrestling. That's all we're talking about tonight. Right. If your kids are watching this and they're buying into it, then there's a much more serious issue than they're just watching wrestling. There's something else going on. But the way I would wrap this up, and this is how I wrote it here, and I spent some time writing. I write a script for every show. And here's what I wrote about this. Although professional wrestling may have repeatedly used, sorry, folks, my dentures are slipping. um, although professional wrestling may have repeatedly used satanic, occult, or supernatural imagery throughout their history, these elements are overwhelmingly presented as fictional entertainment designed to attract attention, provoke emotional responses, and enhance storytelling. While certain performers may personally draw inspiration from these esoteric beliefs, and there are a few that have, or from horror culture, and there are a few that have, the majority of these individuals portray functionable, scripted theatrical gimmickry, showmanship, rather than endorsements of literal or figurative Satanism or occultism. Ultimately, the WWE specifically, their use of satanic or demonic or occult symbolism reflects professional wrestling's broader tradition of blending mythology, horror, religion, and spectacle into the exaggerated entertainment that we all expect as the show. And that's from Paul Levesque, the show. And essentially, that's what it all comes down to. Do I believe in my heart that they're trying to do harm? I think somebody is, but I'm not going to lay it at the doorstep of the WWE. And I said that from the very beginning of the show. I'm not going to lay it at their doorstep. I think, again, but I am going to make this point. I think somebody within that organization has an agenda. And the only reason I'm going with that, and I'm going with my gut on this, Mikey, is you would think by now, given the fact that they're bleeding, hemorrhaging money, this company is hemorrhaging money, you would think with the just substantial loss in ticket sales, they would do anything but what they're currently doing to generate sales. Because what they're doing is turning people away rather than having them go to the box office to buy a ticket. I think somebody there with some stroke is pushing forward their narrative, and they got more stroke than the people do, apparently. Because as I said at the beginning, and I'll maintain this now, I think the problem is that it used to be, here's what we want, give us what we want. And now it's, you'll take what we give you and you'll like it. And I think that's, and so I'll let you close out the show with whatever commentary you wish.
Well, I would make somewhere about the halfway or maybe even earlier in the show, you made a statement, Angelo, that was something to the effect of, is it satanic? Is it immoral? I think I will slam dunk that there is immoral agendas in wrestling programming, and not to pick on them all the time, but WWE programming is just as guilty, if not more so than anybody. And I'll give you an example. I've gone to maybe 20 or 30 of the NXT house shows here in Florida, a lot of them in Jacksonville. And in the fall of 2024, I made a little Florida tour where I went to Leland, Florida, and Orlando, and all these little towns in Florida to see the NXT house shows for a couple of months because I wanted to see the different venues and see what the crowds are like. And I had a good time doing that. But I noticed at the time there was a wrestler named Trick Williams who's now on the WWE main roster. And I wasn't even a fan of the NXT television show. I was going to the house shows without watching the TV shows, which is kind of unique, but that's what I was doing. And I noticed that when this wrestler Trick Williams would come out, the fans, and a lot of these fans, Angelo, they're paying 15 or 25 bucks a ticket. At the time, it was actually 10 and 20 to see the NXT house shows. They weren't charging a lot for these tickets. And so you'd have a lot of families there with a lot of little kids and their parents. And that's kind of nice to see. You know, it's nice to see that families are still going to wrestling, and it's not just for the super rich people. And
Yeah,
when Trick Williams would come out, the fans would start to chant, "Whoop that trick! Whoop that trick!" That's the guy's catchphrase.
yeah.
And I wonder, and I'm standing here with no kids by myself. I'm not a father. I have no children to look after, right? But I'm watching all these families, the little kids chanting, "Whoop that trick, whoop that trick." And mom is chanting, "Whoop that trick," and dad is chanting, "Whoop that trick." Do they realize that this movie, Hustle and Flow, which came out about 15 years ago and was a great movie, that's where that catchphrase came from. It was about
Yeah,
a pimp, a pimp turned record producer, record performer,
I
music
know the
performer.
film well.
He had a song. He had his hit song in the movie, which transcended into real life from the soundtrack of the film,
Mhm.
was "Whoop That Trick," which is about beating up a prostitute who doesn't pay her tab to the pimp.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, if I'm a father, which I'm not, but if I was, is the father in this Florida audience even thinking like the way that I'm thinking? Like I'm processing that maybe it's not a good idea to have your little daughter, and some of them were little girls too, chanting "Whoop
Yeah.
that trick." You're
Here's the
endorsing
thing
beating up a
about that,
prostitute.
and but you bring up a really good point. You bring up a really good point. The film came out about 15 years ago. Okay.
Yeah,
And here's the thing, though. Understand that at the time, a lot of the parents may have only been teenagers at the time. They may not even know or remember. And you
right.
got to remember something as well. It was an urban film, largely African American.
Sure.
Okay. And how many, let's be honest, again, let's be very candid. How many African Americans were in the audience that night at the NXT show? Not probably
A
not a
few.
whole lot.
A few, some, but not
Right.
overwhelmingly, but some. Florida is a
But
very integrated
largely
state.
speaking, though, it was probably a Caucasian audience, right?
A good portion, but there was some black people there too. I would say
Okay.
there was.
And that's the thing, their frame of reference, they don't understand what whoop that trick is. Their frame of reference is so far removed from that, they can't identify with it. Just like somebody who doesn't understand the occult or Satanism, would they think, well, okay, well, that's got to be devil worship. And it's really not per se. I wouldn't, I mean, like I said, I have friends that are Satanists, but it's not, they're good people. It's not something that, that's for me. I'm much more conservative, but that's just me because it's with I was raised that way. I believe, you live your life the way you want to live. And hey, and whatever, well, they used to say, Mikey, whatever floats your boat, right? You remember that
Yeah,
one?
yeah. I remember
And
that one.
so, yeah, and that's fine. That's fine. That's not for me, but it's not something that if I see that in a wrestling show, it's not something that's I'm comfortable with.
Right.
And again, we on this show we will promote our love of wrestling, and we will promote the love of that sport. Um, and no problems in doing that. I have no qualms about even now promoting WWE or AEW or any wrestling organization, national or indie. Not a problem. The problem I have is watch what you give your audience. That's all I'm saying. If you
Okay.
guys are out there some of you people in control of these organizations are watching, you might just be careful what you give your audience because it might come back to bite you on the ass. And I think WWE, Mikey, is experiencing that big bite right now.
Well, I think they are suffering their own ego, and a lot of the theme tonight from my end has been ego. And when they raised the ticket prices so that these families couldn't attend, and it showed a lot of ego. And one of the TKO board members said something about, well, when Vince McMahon was here, he wanted this to be a family-friendly presentation, but we don't care about that as much. We're just here to make some good money. I think the fans took that to heart, and they said, screw you. And
You
that's why,
validated, you just 1,000% validated what I said about 30 minutes ago.
yeah,
You 1,000% validated it. They don't care. They make money. We don't care who with, just make a lot of it. Okay?
they're struggling. They're struggling right now to sell tickets to SummerSlam, which they expanded to a 2-night event. And they're struggling to sell the tickets for it. And they've lowered the ticket prices starting at $25.
$25.
Basically,
I heard that today. It's fucking scary. It's an insult, Mikey. It's an insult. Because what that means is that those guys that are working that thought they were going to get 50,000 might only get 20,000.
the wrestlers, you mean?
Yeah, wrestlers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's these
yeah.
premium live events, folks. If you guys don't understand how it works, like Mikey and I do, you get paid on the house. If the house loses money, that's coming out of your pocket. You ain't getting paid, or you're not getting paid what you thought you were getting paid anyway.
Right.
Like an indie show, I'll give you perfect, and because you've been there. If you sell 500 tickets to an indie show in a building that holds 2,000 people, you're in the hole already, because that means you got to pay for your ring, you got to pay the rental on the ring, you got to pay your insurance, you got to pay the rental on the building, whatever that's going to cost you. You're already in the hole. And now the guys that are expecting to get $100 or $200, they may get a coupon for Pizza Hut and a handshake, maybe,
Hey, I like Pizza Hut. Send us some coupons.
Right. But they're not getting any cash, Mike. That's what I'm saying.
I got to say as well, before we wrap up, I think we got to tip the hat to Kevin Sullivan. You mentioned him once, but there's YouTube compilations about this, but Kevin Sullivan back in 1982, 83, 84, he never used the term Satan. He didn't use the term the devil. I think his pseudonym that he used was Abuddha Singh.
Abuddha Dean. Yeah.
It was actually really good stuff.
That's funny that you mentioned that. I'm so happy you mentioned that. Do you know who Abuddha Dean was?
Was it King Curtis?
No. It was Abuddha Dean is a real figure in African history.
Oh, okay, cool.
Abuddha Dean was the fertility goddess of love in African history. Now, you can't make this. What happened was Kevin Sullivan and Mark Lewin were in Africa. Okay. And because Mark Lewin was a big, he was a hunter. He liked to go on those safaris. So he and Kevin Sullivan went on a safari, and they were talking about the business wrestling, and somebody overheard them. One of the African guides, they had 2 or 3 guides with them. One of the African guides said, Abuddha Dean. And they both stopped and they looked. They said, what is Abuddha Dean? She was the African fertility goddess of love. So if you wanted if you wanted to have a baby with a woman, you had to pray to the fertility goddess of love, Abuddha Dean.
Sure.
There you go. It's funny. Kevin Sullivan, with one of the last interviews he ever did was the show. I had him on my show. You can find that. It's on our Wrestling with the Future. Yeah. Well, a great guy too.
Yeah.
My neighbor knew Kevin very, very well. My neighbor Kathy Fitzpatrick. She used to drive when she was his driver whenever he came to the area. Because she knew where she knew where all the the great spots were for him, the strip bars, places to go get drunk, places like that. Anyway, Mikey, tell everybody what's coming up with you. Oh, and don't forget, Mr. Messier, promote your book.
Well, I appreciate that. Fighter Play Basketball is available on Audible audiobook, Barnes and Noble. It's on Amazon. It's a great book. I wrote it, but check it out. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read it.
Yeah.
That's for Kindle Unlimited. And
Yeah.
my other book is brand new, Bad Girls with Good Tattoos. This is fresh off the press. And this is literally less
Yeah.
than a month old. This one's
I'm
available.
actually going to go. I tell you what, Mikey, I was going to ask you for a copy, but I'm actually going to go on Amazon and buy one. I'm going
Oh, I
to put
appreciate that.
some money in your pocket.
Thanks,
Speaking of
buddy.
money in the pocket, ladies and gentlemen, brand new merch, hot off the press. Check it out. The next shirt you see will have Mikey and the Mad Dog. This is our shirt. What's the Buzz Popcast? Mikey and the Mad Dog is right there behind the veil, and Mikey and the Mad Dog, and what radio was meant to be. And I'll tell you what, the next shirt you see, it's going to be a good one. It's going to have both of our pretty faces on it.
All right.
Well, one pretty face anyway, and one kind of grizzled veteran here. Well, I'll tell you what, we went to, you guys got lucky tonight. You went commercial free tonight, not a commercial. Beautiful. Which means that I get to play a song for you before we leave. This is our new one. I want you to check this out. I'm really happy with this one. Check this out. Listen to this song, folks.
It's Mikey and the Mad Dog, where every voice can take the stage. Open eyes and even night fun poems, turning every single page. So crank it up and stay a while. We've only just begun. Welcome to the conversation, Mikey and the Mad Dog. Everyone.
I love that.
That's cool.
I love that. That's a good one. I'll tell you what, you guys don't know. I sit around here all day writing stuff. I write scripts for the shows. I write song lyrics. I write all this stuff. Thankfully, I don't know how to write music, but what I do is I have this this AI that I belong to called Suno, and it creates the music for you. And then you own it. You don't have to worry about YouTube copywriting you and all. You strike for copyright infringement up your ass. I own this shit.
All right, nice.
I tell you what, Mikey, it's a great show tonight. I will
It was a lot of
see
fun.
you, Lord willing, in the creek don't rise. I will see you Monday night, and
Okay.
our show Monday night will be Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson. Pearl Jr. was a Jackson family friend. I should say, is a Jackson family friend. She knew Michael. And according to her, she knows Michael. Is intense. You're going to hear some interesting stories about the whereabouts and fate of one Mr. Michael Joe Jackson. Pearl Jr. is the foremost authority on Michael because she knew him. Why not? On the meantime here, I am the Mad Dog for Mikey Messier and MikeMessier.com. You can reach me, the Mad Dog, at What's the Buzz Podcast at gmail.com. And on our website, you can check Mikey and the Mad Dog out and What's the Buzz and Behind the Veil and all of our shows, wrestling and non-wrestling, at WTBRradio.podbean.com. And that's a radio on demand the way it was meant to be, folks. Like Papa DeCipio always said, tomorrow is promised to no one. So make today count. Be good to each other. Take care, folks. We will see you then. God bless. Good night.